Everyone, welcome. We are going to get started on time. Just opening the room up. Hey everyone, welcome. We're going to get started on time. Got about a minute or so left. Hi all, welcome. We are going to get started in about 30 seconds. Just letting everyone into the room. Excellent. And just to make sure chat capabilities are working for everyone, if you can pop your name in the chat and what organization you're with, we are going to get started here in about 15 seconds. Amazing. Thanks, Melina. Melina from the Night Ministry. Everyone else, as you are coming into the room, please pop your name in the chat and what organization you're with. Hey, Chandler. Awesome. And we are going to get started here right at the top of the hour. Welcome to today's session on major gift cultivation. If you're just joining, please drop where you're coming from in the chat. I love to see organizations, geography in some of these rooms. I know we've got a lot of people from different places today. We do have a lot of ground to cover, and every minute is practical, real-time advice. So there's no theory for theory's sake today. By the end of this session, you'll have a complete system, real scripts that you've already written, and a 30-day action plan you can actually implement on Monday. So before we get into it, please make sure you've joined our Slido. That QR code is right there on the screen. We'll actually be using it for polls and our Q&A today, so I can poll them during the session. So I'll give you just a moment to get that Slido code. And we're going to get rolling. And again, just a quick Slido code if you need it, slido.com, and then our code right at the top. So before we get into the content today, just 90 seconds on who I am and why this work matters so much. I'm Amy Sexton Stanislavski. I've spent 15 years in this work, including leading development teams for Boys and Girls Clubs of America, teams raising hundreds of millions annually. And I've personally cultivated and closed 6- and 7-figure gifts, including a $27 million blended commitment. But the line at the top of this slide is actually what I want you to hold on to today, and really what's going to carry our theme throughout the day. The $27 million gift that I closed didn't just start with a solicitation strategy. It actually started with a conversation in a parking lot where I listened for about 40 minutes and exactly asked 0 questions about money. And that's the whole system. So every framework we go through today is really building towards that moment, being the kind of fundraiser where a $27 million gift feels like a natural next step in a relationship. And it's not this dramatic ask. So we're going to dive into it. I want to start with a number that's either going to validate what you already know or rearrange what you think about your job. The first is major gifts. The top 12% of your portfolio or your donor files generate about 88% of total dollars raised, according to Bloomerang's donor research. This isn't just a majority, this is 88% of overall dollars raised in a general portfolio. And yet, most nonprofits spend the majority of their fundraising time and energy on the 88% of donors who generate 12% of the revenue. And that's not necessarily a criticism, it's a resource allocation problem, but it's fixable. And that's really where we're at today. 66% of all charitable donations come from individuals. And this is from Giving USA and Bloomerang data. This isn't foundations, it's not corporations, individuals themselves. And the average major gift is 10 to 20 times larger than the average annual gift or annual fund gift. March through May is actually peak solicitation season. And the organizations that closed their biggest gifts this spring started their cultivation last fall. And if you're in the room today, you're not too late, but you need to move. And that's really what this session is designed to help you do. You'll walk away with an actionable plan over the next 30 days to start moving in the direction to be able to secure major gifts. So here's where we're going. 6 to 7 chapters, 65 minutes. Every section builds on the one before. And notice the question under prospect research. Who in your database is hiding 50,000 right now? Not if they exist, because they do, and we are going to find them. This session is intentionally dense. You came for a complete system, not a highlight reel. So here's my ask. Hold those specific questions for our Q&A or drop them into the Slido as we go through. You can also drop them into the chat, and I'll leave 10 minutes at the end of this session for all of those questions. But again, this is very dense material, so we're going to move through as strategically as possible. So put those questions in the chat as you have them, or that Slido Q&A. Let's go. First thing we need to establish. What's a major gift at your organization? A major gift is any gift requiring personal and individualized cultivation, meaning you work with a donor one-on-one to receive a gift. It's not necessarily a dollar amount, it's the relationship investment. So read that again. It's not a dollar amount, it's a relationship investment. And this is the most important reframe in the entire session because it liberates smaller organizations from thinking major gifts are for someone else. They don't belong in our organization, and that's not where we're at. Now, if you're a $500,000 organization, a $5,000 gift that requires 6 months of personal cultivation is a major gift. If you're a $50 million organization, your threshold might be $25,000 or higher. The benchmark ranges on this slide, and I apologize, I don't know why that text is so close together, but I will update that before I send the slides. But the benchmark ranges are just general guidelines. Your threshold should be set at the level where your cultivation investment is justified by the expected return. And here's the most important thing about your threshold. If it's not written down and shared with your entire team, it doesn't exist. We talked about this in the last session with CRMs. We've talked about this before when we're discussing grant writing. If it's not written down, if it's not shared with the team, it does not exist. So your first action item today is to write your threshold number down and share it with everyone who touches donor relationships. That's it. That's the one thing that can really change how your whole team operates. And it's one area that a lot of organizations miss. So don't miss this. Write down the threshold and share it with your team. So I'm really interested in the room's response. So what's your organization's current major gift threshold? Whoops. And apparently my Slido is not cooperating. So pop it in the chat. What's your major gifts? What's your organization's major gift threshold? What's the number? Where do your major gifts start? Under 10K, Melina. 500, Jenny. Okay. 1,000, Jacqueline. Great. So we've identified major gift threshold. How about some others? 1,000, Paula, Susie, 5,000. Terrific. 5,000, Kathy, 5,000, Chandler, 5,000, Tracy. I'm seeing a theme here. 5,000. Fantastic. Okay, for those of you who don't have an answer, potentially maybe it's not defined at your organization, step one for you is going to be define it. That's exactly why major gifts isn't a one size fits all. The system is the same, but the numbers are just different and they differ for many different sized organizations. So determine what that threshold is for you and make sure everyone knows it. Before you invest cultivation time in any prospect, you need to be able to answer yes to three questions. And this is really what we call the three-pillar framework. The first is capacity. Do they have the financial ability to make this gift? And this is where your research comes in. So you might find real estate, you might find role, business ownership, previous giving history. Maybe they're on a donor wall for another organization. But this is where that research comes in. And we're going to dig more into how to learn more about research tactics later on. The second question is inclination. Do they care about your mission? Do they care deeply enough to give at a major gift level? This is relationship driven. So this might be volunteer history, event attendance, personal connection to the cause. And whether they've said this to you unprompted, that this work matters makes a difference. The third question is timing. Is this the right moment in their life? And this is where the listening comes in. In the beginning, I talked about that 7-figure gift that I closed. 40 minutes was spent in a parking lot just listening to this donor. Recent liquidity events, maybe like a business sale or retirement inheritance. Retirement or inheritance. Maybe some potential life transitions or the absence of other competing campaigns. Maybe they were a major donor to a large endowment campaign and that campaign is over with now. Now, here's the disqualification rule and something you really need to hold on to. Capacity, question number one, without inclination, question number two, produces one-time transactional gifts. And you want relationship or transformational gifts, not single transaction, but you want a lifetime of partnership with this donor. And that's really the reason why this framework matters. Every gap in these three pillars tells you exactly what you need to do next. So if there's missing capacity, research before you invest cultivation time. Missing inclination, you're not done cultivating. Maybe there's a site visit needed, or maybe a beneficiary story has to be shared. Potentially, you need to invite that donor into an advisory role for a special project. Slow down. The worst thing you can do is rush an ask that isn't ready. So try this right now. Think of one major prospect that you've been circling. Maybe it's someone you've been meaning to get to. Which pillar is the weakest for them right now? And type it in the chat. Is it capacity, inclination, or timing? Which pillar is the weakest for this donor that you're thinking about right now? Okay, Susie, timing. Timing, Kathy. Timing. Oh, I'm seeing theme. Timing. Absolutely. Okay. Really, really popular response. Timing is potentially an issue. And that answer actually gives you your next step on Monday morning for that specific person. We're going to start working through this process together. So think about that person as we're going through. Timing seems to be the recurring theme. So let's take this one step further. This grid that you're looking at maps capacity against inclination to give you a specific action for any prospect in your portfolio. So in that top right-hand corner, that's high capacity, high inclination. These people are the solicit now people. Ask within 90 days. Solicit now is an immediate solicitation strategy to utilize. Now, the other side of the grid, top left, high inclination, low potential capacity. That's stewardship. So that might be a planned gift or a legacy conversation. You want to continue to steward that donor because they deeply care, but they might not have liquidity and they might not have liquid wealth. However, Don't ignore them. Some of our best planned givers are donors who show consistent giving over a 5-year period, sometimes 5 to 7, sometimes 3 to 5, depending on your threshold and the age of your organization. But do not ignore them. They're terrific planned giving prospects and people who you want to have that legacy conversation with. Now let's look at the other sides of the scale. Bottom right, high capacity but low inclination. This is relationship building. So there's a relationship gap here. We need to build the mission connection before we ask. We really want to make sure that they feel connected to our mission. Money without motivation produces one-time gifts, and that is not what we are looking for here. We are looking for sustainable, transformational gifts. So now here's part 2 of that exercise. Take 90 seconds and place your prospect in your mind, that top prospect, on this grid. Think about where they belong on this grid. Are they high capacity, low inclination? Are they high inclination, maybe low capacity? What cell do you think they're in? I'm going to give you 60 seconds to think about this. Maybe even write their initials down on your notepad or wherever you're taking notes. What cell are they in? And if you happen to know what cell they're in, feel free to pop it in the chat. Really interested to see where these donors are at. A lot of you recognize timing was an issue. So where are these donors at in the cycle? Okay. Looks like some of we got a couple of responses here. High capacity, medium inclination. Okay, Susie. Susie, that's a really, really great example. So here's where we're going to see that deepening of the mission. We need to increase their involvement with the organization. Maybe we ask them to serve in an advisory role. Maybe we ask them to come on a site tour. Maybe we introduce them to one of the clients that we serve or a product that we deliver. Whatever that looks like for your organization, we need to loop that donor in a little bit more before they're in that high capacity, high inclination. Okay. See, everyone else is still thinking about it. That's okay. What I want you to do is start thinking about that donor and what area of this cycle they're in. This is your portfolio management tool. And every prospect that you manage should be in exactly one box at any given time in the process. Paula, high inclination, medium capacity. Okay, same scenario. So we're looking at really deepening the mission. We've got to loop them back in. So some further cultivation is needed. That's terrific. So think about your donor and what grid they are in, or where at in the grid they're in. Before we get to every major donor meeting, you should know 3 things: what they've done professionally, what they care about philanthropically, and what their wealth indicators look like. Now, some of you may laugh. This is not stalking, it's professional preparation. We're not stalking our donors. We're professionally preparing for these conversations. Start with your own database. So when we're starting to dig in and we need to understand our donors better, start here. And it really means start there before you open a single external tool. Because 3 years of consecutive giving and responding to multiple appeals of any gift over $500, that intersection is your conversation list. So run that sort in your CRM right now or this week. I would bet most of you have 10 to 15 people on that list that you've never had a major gift conversation with who meets that intersection. Again, consistency of giving, and we're looking for gift types above that major gift threshold. Even a single gift of $500 might indicate a higher level of potential major gift threshold. So once you've mined your own data, here's where we start to layer in some of those free tools. So before we go to some of the paid screening tools, let's use the free things that are available. Look at 990s through Candid. You could look at real estate records through your county assessor. LinkedIn is terrific to use to find professional history and potential board service. You might even look at SEC and EDGAR for public company executives. Might be considered another tool to use in your toolbox. And then finally, maybe looking through local business journals or community databases for more information. Maybe there's some local boardship available that you can dig into. Check your free resources first before you move over to your paid. Now, there are some excellent paid tools. I'm sure many of you are aware of these: iWave, Donor Search, Wealth Engine, Blackbaud, but they amplify research capacity. They don't replace the starting point. So you still need to look through your own database and do some of your own research first. Now, there is a tool I'm going to be sharing with you called our philanthropy brief. And this is really just the format where all of this research lands. You should have one area either on your database, your CRM, or within your files where you are collecting all of this data around your major gift donors. You also want to make sure that these briefs are completed before any major donor meetings happen. You can continue to update these documents, but ensure that the base is there before those meetings occur. So quick note, again, I like shared, I'm going to send these in a follow-up email to you as just a thank you for coming today. But this is a one-pager free philanthropy brief that you can use and put directly in play at your organization. You can use this immediately in your 30-day plan. And the goal would be to complete it for your top 5 prospects as soon as possible. So now that we're thinking we've got all of these different tools at our fingertips, I want to just touch on AI. I know AI is a really popular tool. It's gaining popularity by the minute, and it's really changed how we prospect research, not just by replacing judgment, but giving us a 10-minute head start on every meeting prep. So here's what AI can actually do for you. It can synthesize public information very quickly. It can draft background summaries. It can identify philanthropic patterns, and it can generate conversation starters tailored to a specific prospect. So here's an AI prompt that I use. You can certainly take a picture of this. You're going to get a copy of these slides after the session as well. So don't worry if you don't have time to grab a screenshot. But some of the prompts that I use: you're a nonprofit fundraising researcher. You have to tell AI how you want to use the tool. Using publicly available information, summarize what you know about this person, including professional background, board service, known philanthropic interests, estimated wealth indicators, and any connections to my mission. Then you want to format it as a one-page briefing. Then watch what comes back. Look at the output. In 3 to 5 minutes, you'll have a background summary, some board service history, philanthropic interests, etc. And that took just 2 or 3 minutes. The research that normally would have taken me likely 45 to an hour took just a couple of minutes with AI tools. Now, one caution here: AI supplements research. It does not replace relationship intelligence. So the system knows that Jim Whitefield, which is the sample AI output that I added, sold a real estate firm. What it doesn't know is that he teared up when you showed him the program tour. You still own that information. So don't lose that information as you're going through this process. The other caveat here is that AI is not always correct, and in many cases it is wrong. So you do have to do some background due diligence on the information that you pull. And then just as a caveat, AI is a terrific time-saving tool. You should never upload any of your donor information into any AI portals. So please don't do that. If you have any questions about that, that's a totally separate topic. But I want to make sure everyone knows here, no sensitive information should go into any public form using AI, with a couple of exceptions of some CRM tools that already have those background pieces built in. So before I move on, I am also going to send you a free tool, the AI Prompts for Wealth Screening Toolkit. It's got 8 copy-paste ready prompts for everything from initial research to ask prep to post-ask follow-up as a thank you for attending today. So every organization believes that it has no major gift prospects, and those beliefs are typically wrong. Those prospects exist. The pipeline work just hasn't been done. So four sources you need to mind right now. We've talked about the first one a couple of times, but the first is your database. And not just looking at it, but actually sorting it. The signal is right on the slide. 3 years of consecutive giving, responding to more than two appeal types, and any gift over $500. That intersection is your starting major gift list, not prospects you need to find, prospects you already have on your database or in your database. Start there. Step one, box one is step one. Now, the second, which requires a little bit more due diligence and a little bit more work, is your board network. And here's the distinction that matters. A board member who says, I know them and can make a personal introduction is a fundamentally different resource than a board member who just gives you a name. Warm introductions carry over a 3 times higher conversion rate for first time meetings. And that statistic has to change how you structure your circle of influence exercises with your board members. So we are looking for warm, personal, friendly introductions from our board. So that's step two. Step three, and you can dig and use your CRM for this as well, event attendees with no giving history. They've already invested their time, and that's the signal. Someone who came to your gala 2 years in a row and has never given is not disinterested. They're just unconverted. So we need to look at starting at that list and converting those prospects into our major gift pipeline. And then finally, lapsed major donors. So before you contact them, find out why they're lapsed. It should be in your CRM. If it's not, you need to find that information and get it into the CRM. The re-engagement conversation deeply depends on the answer why that donor lapsed. So when you're looking at building your cultivation process and building out your portfolio, figure out why they are no longer donors to you. A really strong rule of thumb for a pipeline minimum is 20 to 25 actively managed prospects per major gift officer. And I mean actively managed, not a list, not on a stage, actively managed within the portfolio. And you want them organized across all four tiers: discovery, cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. Now, keep in mind, major gift officers, development directors, etc., all have different duties. So you want to scale based on the job description. Some major gift officers might be able to carry a threshold portfolio of 100 or more. Some major gift officers are splitting duty between development director roles and can only carry a smaller portfolio. Keep that pipeline minimum as a guide, as a starting point for anyone touching resource development. A prospect research template that helps you evaluate and score in all four of these areas and source types is actually available in our resource library. So if you're looking for a rubric to use, it includes a 9-box and 7-question ask readiness assessment and a place to write your ask word for word before the meeting. So definitely check out our resource library if you have not done so yet. So we've identified our prospect, right? Now we need to start moving into the discovery, into the cultivation. The cultivation principle is at the very top of this slide. Every interaction should deepen the donor's connection to your mission, not just ask for their time. Simple sentence. Harder to execute than it sounds. So I want you to take 60 seconds right now, and I'm going to time this, actually 60 seconds. I'm going to be quiet, and I want you to honestly answer these 4 questions for yourself. The first, when did you last invite a major prospect to something that wasn't a gala or an annual dinner or a fundraising event? The second, when did you last write a handwritten note, handwritten keyword, that wasn't a gift acknowledgement? So a handwritten note that was not a thank you. The third, when did you last have a conversation with a major donor where giving was never mentioned? And the fourth, when did you last connect two donors to each other? If you can answer all 4 of these questions with a specific date in your mind, and that date is within the last 90 days, you have a strong cultivation program. If you can't, you have what we call a donor list. So drop in the chat. When was the last time you had a donor meeting with 0 ask and 0 agenda? Just a number, last week, last month, last year? When was the last time you had a donor meeting? No ask, no agenda. Just getting to know you. A couple of months ago. Okay, great. Last month. Awesome, Melina. Great, Susie. Today, Jenny. Yay. That's awesome. Terrific. I love that. So for those of you that can't answer that question, that might not be within Paula this month, amazing. That might be over 90 days. That gap is your cultivation plan. We're going to dig into that. So that gap becomes the cultivation plan. So now let's name what real cultivation looks like and what we can retire and maybe stop doing. So here's some high value activities. Personal tours with beneficiary stories, behind the scenes access, exclusive briefings on where you're heading, meaning one-to-one, connecting donors to each other, handwritten notes tied to specific milestones, not generic thank yous, specific moments, and involving them in decisions, advisory roles, naming input even. Here are some of our low value activities and things we probably can retire. Generic event invitations with no follow-up, no personalization whatsoever. An annual report as a sole touch point, meaning all you do for your donors once a year is send an annual report. Emails without personalization, and checking calls with no agenda. Here's the test. Does this interaction deepen their mission, deepen their relationship with your mission? Not with you, with the mission. The moment cultivation becomes about the relationship with the fundraiser, you created a dependency, and that hurts organizations. That donor gives because of you. So when you leave, they leave. What you want is a donor whose relationship with the organization is so strong that they would survive your departure. They would continue to give to the organization even after you've moved on to a different role. If cultivation is the strategy, moves management is your system. The definition is right there on the slide. Moves management is a disciplined system for tracking prospect interactions, recording intelligence, and ensuring intentional progression towards a gift. And there's 5 stages. Everyone's probably really familiar with the cycle of a donor or the cycle of philanthropy. Every prospect in your portfolio is in exactly one of them at any given time. So they might be still in discovery where you're still qualifying the donor. Maybe you're still learning a little bit more. Maybe you're trying to qualify them as a potential donor in one of those categories. The second is education. You might also call this qualification. You're deepening mission connection with this donor. You're helping them understand a little bit more about your organization, and you're understanding a little bit more about the donor. The third is involvement. You're creating meaningful access. And this is really just the ramp up to cultivation. So if you call both of these cultivation, you're in a strong suit. Cultivation is where you're building emotional investment. So this is really where we're starting to loop in our donors to our mission and to the process. And then finally, solicitation. You're making the ask. So you'll see these are all separate from our general stewardship. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. That's still a part of the cycle. We are focused on these 5 core areas right now, though. The line at the bottom of the slide is really the most useful diagnostic tool in major gift work. If you can't name the stage, you do not have a pipeline. You have a donor list, and we want a pipeline. So open your portfolio right now mentally. Can you name a stage for each person? If you hesitate, that's your homework. That's what we're starting on Monday. We need to be able to identify a stage with each person in our major gift portfolio, whatever stage that is. The cultivation activity tracker in the resource library is actually a 4-tab Excel file that tracks all of this. It's a big pipeline dashboard. It's got a prospect tracker with drop-down stage fields, a moves log with 100 different rows, and an ask prep list, checklist. That's also available in our library. If you haven't seen it yet, or if you don't have anything useful to use, please do check out our library for that tool. So the difference between a contact log and a cultivation record is what you learned. If it's not in your CRM, it didn't happen. And here is what a good contact log looks like. We're looking for date, contact type, whether it was in person, coffee, how long it was. In this particular example, 45 minutes. And here's what we learned in that donor coffee for 45 minutes. We learned that the daughter started at Purdue and they have a hiking trip planned. Why does that matter? Because next month, when you invite this donor to a program tour, you might say, hey, I know you're busy with the Purdue transition, but I think this visit would mean something to you right now. That's cultivation. That's understanding your donor. We might also talk a little bit about professionally what's going on. He was just promoted to VP of operations with more discretionary authority over charitable giving. That changes your readiness score. And then that third question I told you about, philanthropic inclination. I believe in investing. He told us in this meeting, I believe in investing in the next generation. That was unprompted. That's your connection statement on the day of the ask. So keeping these notes in a nice condensed file and ensuring you can go back to them helps prepare you for the next step. So the next move is to invite him to the spring program tour by April 15th. And I'm going to move his ask readiness. Instead of a 2 out of 5, I'm going to move him to a 3 after the tour because we've moved him through the moves management pipeline or the donor readiness pipeline that we talked about on that last slide. Let me go back for just a moment. He is moving through this pipeline. The progression is intentional here. And I'm tracking that through the CRM database or through my particular database. Now, this entry probably took maybe 5, maybe 8 minutes to write after the meeting. And I did it immediately after the meeting because I didn't want to lose any of that information. That's a really important distinction. You all are carrying a lot of work. You're typically in multiple places at once. Take 5 minutes, book it into the meeting time, and write down what you learned at that meeting somewhere. Even if it means it doesn't get in your CRM that day, make sure it's in the notes somewhere so you can call it back to put it back in the CRM. And it does need to make it back into the CRM within 48 hours. That's really important. Get it back into your CRM. So those few minutes are the difference between a professional major gift program and a collection of donor lunches. Again, if it doesn't get in the CRM, it did not happen. We also have another tool if you need it, an activity tracker. It's available in the RD Pro Coach resource library. If you're not really sure how to track these things, what to ask, what to listen for, check that out. Now, I want to show you how this all actually works together. One gift, 5 different stages. Now, this is anonymized, but real. It's a real life explanation. So month 1 started with the database source for a sort. 4 consecutive years of giving, all at $1,000 or more. We wanted the donors to attend at least 2 of our galas, and we wanted to make sure that they were opening our emails. That's some of the signaling we talked about. So right there, they immediately got into the pipeline. They were added into the pipeline, and we drafted a philanthropy brief just to get us started. So months 2 through 6, we cultivated this donor. A program tour, we had some handwritten notes that went out. Advisory, invited them to our advisory breakfast. We connected them to a board member with a shared professional background. And what we learned is this person is deeply motivated by first generation college access. They actually lost a sibling who never finished school. And this is very personal to them. So that alone moved our ask readiness in the pipeline from stage 2 to stage 4. Now, here's the big piece. Ask. In month 7, we asked for a $25,000 gift over a 3-year period, or otherwise $8,333 a year over a 3-year period. It was a specific ask. It was not a range, a specific ask to support one of our programs. It was done in person. It was about 45 minutes, and we had a connection statement, an impact bridge, an ask, and then we stayed silent. His response was, I need to think about it. Wasn't a no, was just I need to think about it. Now, about 2 weeks later, we sent a one-page impact summary, and this offered a multi-year pledge structure. We actually found out the real concern. He wanted the spouse involved. He wanted his partner involved in the process. So we scheduled a joint meeting, and the outcome was a $30,000 pledge over 3 years, which is $5,000 more than the ask over a period of time. And then finally, we closed and stewarded the gift. So month 8, and what we're still doing today, we had a gift agreement that was signed, or a pledge card for some of you that are utilizing that, within 10 days. We had a thank you call within 24 hours and a personal note from the program director. Now, for the first year, we're aiming to hit 6 meaningful touches of stewardship. We're inviting them to name a scholarship, and our next ask is planned for month 26 of the relationship with this donor. And that's going to be for a $50,000 endowment conversation around this same program. So these frameworks, they're not theoretical. They're a sequence, and every stage we just covered maps directly to a chapter in today's workshop. So make sure you're following the framework. We are building long-term goals with our donors. We're building long-term relationships. So one of the hardest things I think fundraisers struggle with, and I know I did when I first got started, is the ask. Chapter 7, the number. 2 things that get in the way of a good ask amount: not enough research and too much hesitation. So we're going to solve both. The 3X rule is likely your starting point when you do not have screening data. So this means that you cannot find any information about the donor, either from either from all of the free tools or the paid tools that they use. In my experience, and this is just practitioner judgment, not a formula from a study, asking for roughly 3 times their largest previous gift gives you a defensible, non-arbitrary starting point. Some practitioners will say 2 times, some practitioners will say 5 times. I find meeting right in the middle, 3 times, tends to land right size for the relationship. But use your judgment and adjust based on what you know with the donor. So your next ask is likely 3 times their largest previous gift. Consistent $2,500 annual donor, try a $7,500 ask in person. A consistent $10,000 donor, try a $30,000 ask in person. This single rule eliminates the most common reason fundraisers under ask. They guess low because they're afraid. And this rule gives you a defensible starting point. Now, if you have more information, use the formula. And this formula is tried and true among many practitioners: Bloomerang, Giving USA, Donor Search, Wealth Engine. Gift capacity equals net worth times 1 to 5% divided by the number of organizations they support. And again, that's where this research is so critical coming into play. The calibration factors on the left help you tune that number: giving history, comparable organizations, life stage, and relationship depth. And notice the board volunteer involvement line. That's not just a nice to have. People who give time before give money that people who give time before they give money are demonstrating belief, not obligation. They're demonstrating that they believe in you. They've already successfully given you their time. Now it's following with their dollars. Their ask ceiling is almost always higher than a comparable non-volunteer. And if they're on your board or they volunteer, start higher. Now, I want to call out this trap, the range trap, as we call it. Very, very common language. We're thinking 25 to 50,000. Wrong. This signals uncertainty. Donors anchor to the lower number and they self-select to underpay every single time. So stick with a single ask. 35,000 over a 3-year period closes way more gifts than a 25,000 to a $50,000 range. This shows uncertainty. I want to stress that. So be very specific about your ask and tie it back to your mission. One number, specific ask, delivered with confidence. And now that you have the number, let's talk about delivery. So what does delivery look like? 3 parts. That's it. Every successful major gift ask uses this structure. And I'm going to ask all of you to replicate with this in the chat with me. So stick with me on this. Part 1, the connection statement. You've been a part of this work for 10 years, and I wanted to share where we're heading. This is not small talk. This is an anchor. It names the relationship before the ask. What it's saying is this conversation is happening because of what already exists between us. Now, the second piece, the impact bridge. You've heard me reference this before. With a gift at this level, here's what becomes possible. We can put 25 students through our learning program. We can support 50 students with a warm meal every single day. Not it will help generically our programs. What specific named outcome does this gift create? Is it a scholarship? Is it a facility renovation? Is it a staff position? Name it. Tie the impact or tie the dollars to your impact. And then finally, the third part, the ask. I'd like you to consider a gift of $5,000 to make this happen over a 5-year period for a total gift of $25,000. One number, no hedging, no whatever feels right or whatever you feel like or whatever works for you. Exact number, exact designation, delivered in a complete sentence. Then, after you've hit those 3 areas, stop speaking. This is critical. You have to give donors some time to weigh your response. And I promise you, you will be uncomfortable, but that's something we have to push through. We have to push through that uncomfortability. We've got to push through it. Our donors are very important to us, and we have to allow them respectful time to really consider our ask. So the first person who speaks after the ask owns the answer. Make it them. When silence wins, or why silence wins, your instinct is to fill it with reassurance. And that reassurance always inevitably ends up sounding like doubt. I know it's a big number, but this is the sentence that loses gifts. Silence is confidence. Allow your donor some time to just sit with the request, to just think about what you've asked them. So I want you all to put in your chat your 3-part ask structure. I want to know what you are saying to your donors. So pop in that ask structure. Connection statement, the specific impact bridge. So what we're doing, how it's directly tied to our organization, and the specific number. I want to see it in the chat. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to put those answers in. Connection statement, impact bridge, the ask. Remember, saying it's good, writing it's better, and doing it is what closes major gifts. So that's why we're practicing today. Okay. Now I see a lot of you are probably thinking about that ask structure, and that's okay. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds or so. See if we can get some examples in the chat. And if not, we'll go on to the next section. We're going to talk about how to adapt the delivery. While you all are thinking about that, I'm also going to share the full ask conversation framework in the email that you'll get as a thank you for donor personality scripts. It's got the silence principle in there and space for you to write your ask with 2 real prospects. So please do use it. Really want to see you all start raising some major gifts. Get out there, use these tools. About 5 seconds left if you want to pop in the chat. Okay. So you might be thinking, how do we adapt delivery to our donors? Oh, did we get Melina, amazing. You've been a faithful supporter for 12 years. With a meaningful gift, we would be able to open a pilot for our medical respite program. Under what circumstance would you consider a gift of $10,000 to make this happen? Fantastic, Melina. I love it. I love it. Writing it down means it's going to happen. So how do we take this? How do we adapt this delivery to our donors? And what does that look like in practice? Well, the 3-part structure stays the same. What changes is your emphasis, your language, and your evidence. So for analytical donors, you might want to lead with data. ROI, cost per outcome, overhead ratios. And when they ask, how do you measure impact? They're not being difficult. They're telling you how they need the information. So here's what you can say. Here's how we measure impact. And here's what your gift produces per dollar invested. For relational donors, lead with community and belonging. They care about the people around them more than the program metrics. So you might say, you've been a part of this family for years, and this gift deepens that connection. Now, for visionary donors, lead with transformation and legacy. Small scale outcomes don't move the needle for them. What they want to know is what's different because of this gift in 20 years. So, what you might say is this gift doesn't just fund a program, it changes what's possible for the next generation. For the pragmatic donors, lead with the problem and the solution. So don't build up to it. Start with here's the gap, and here's exactly how your gift closes that gap. And this is what the timeline looks like. So, how do you know which type you're dealing with? Listen. Listen in your cultivation meetings. What kind of questions do they ask? What do they ask about? What programs are they most interested in? What lights them up when you talk about certain areas? The donor tells you, you just have to pay attention and you have to listen. That 80-20 rule applies. 80% listening, 20% question generation. So we're going to skip this next activity because we're running a little bit over, but think about which personality type is your top prospect that's been living in your mind as we move forward. Think about their personality type and start generating your ask in line with their personality type. So because our Slido isn't working, we're going to go right to objections, but I'm really interested in knowing really what objection freaks you out the most, what scares you the most. Pop it in the chat because we know an objection is just a question in disguise. It's not necessarily a no. It's a I need more before I can say yes. And your job after the ask is to listen, really, really listen, not defend or explain. Typically, you're going to hear an I need to think about it. It's our most common answer. So there might not be enough clarity on the impact. Your response is absolutely. What would be the most helpful to share as you're thinking through it? You're not retreating. You're just identifying the gap. Now, a very common response we're hearing now is the economy right now, ... thinking more, adding more, concerns about liquidity. So you might consider, would a multi-year pledge feel more manageable? That one sentence converts more maybes than a yes than anything else that you can say to a yes. Another common answer, I need to talk to my spouse, my partner, my advisor. This needs a decision partner. And that's all that means. So the response might be, of course, can I prepare anything helpful for that conversation and mean it? Offer to meet with both of them together even. If they're offering an opportunity to meet with your advisor or meet with their advisor, that might even be a continued cultivation activity with that advisor. Maybe that leads to a planned giving program. So follow that lead. You might hear that's more than I expected. Not sufficiently cultivated is what that means. So your response might be, tell me more about what feels right. I want to understand what matters most to you. And you are actively listening, not retreating. So we're actively listening. And then silence. Silence means they're processing, and we have to allow our donors space to do that. It's not a rejection. So a really, really good tool to use is count to 10 in your head. If they still haven't spoken and you're feeling nervous about the open air, you can respond with a take your time. This is a really significant decision. And then wait again. The donor who speaks first is processing towards a yes. The donor you rescued from silence is thinking about an exit. So you might already hear, I'm already committed to other organizations this year. And that just means there's competing priorities and it's not a permanent no. So your response could be, I completely understand. Would it make sense to revisit this conversation in June or in another month or in another year? I'd love to keep you in the loop on what we're building. Now, the pledge structure conversion is at the very bottom. A 3-year pledge at $10,000 a year is a $30,000 gift at $833 a month or $8,333 a year. Have these numbers ready before every single ask. It can convert a hesitation into a commitment more reliably than any other technique. So keep in mind, expanding the time that a donor has to make that gift converts to more yeses than any other technique available. Have that ready going into that conversation. Have it already ready in the queue. And I'll mention I'm including the complete objection handling scripts in today's follow-up email as well. There's 6, it's got all 6 of these objections in there. There's 3 responses per objection and a full pledge conversion table. So make sure you watch for that email that goes out. Now, an on-site pledge is a conversation. It's not a commitment. The cautionary tale is real. $75,000 pledge and no gift agreement. The donor had a health crisis 6 months later, and the family only honored half. Now, no one's wrong in this scenario. There was just no document, and that's a $37,500 lesson. A gift agreement is not bureaucracy. It's professionalism. It tells your donor we take your commitment seriously enough to honor it in writing, and it protects them as much as it protects you. Now, it's not a binding agreement, right? So that scenario with the donor who was sick could have absolutely not carried out on that pledge, but every major gift should have a written agreement. And there's 3 components that a written agreement covers. It protects both parties by clarifying intent and the commitment. It structures the pledge so you understand the payment schedule, frequency, and options for the donor. And it honors the relationship by treating reminders as relationship touches, not collections. The last thing you want is an automatic email that goes out. So their core elements is donor information, gift amount, schedule of that gift, any gift designation, so if it's going to a specific program or a specific impact area, the recognition the donor would like, any modification provisions, signatures, and then, of course, the date. We have a gift agreement template in our resource library. It's formatted, it covers all 6 elements, and it comes with an internal use checklist. So your finance team knows the moment that it's signed. So definitely check that out if you're a member. The ask is just the beginning. It's not the end. It's just the beginning of your work. And your response to any outcome, yes, not yet, or no, determines whether you close the next gift. So yes, terrific, amazing. Thank that donor within 24 hours. This is especially important for major gift donors. Call first, whether it's you, your CEO, your executive director, your board chair, but a thank you call must come first, and then the letter follows. So here's where you can get your traditional acknowledgement in, your traditional tax letter. You should introduce them to the impact immediately, not next month, this week. So immediately from the gift. Launch a stewardship plan with at least 5 to 7 meaningful touches in year 1. And recognize as an agreed in the gift agreement. So make sure you go back and reference that gift agreement because there might be a specific way they want to be thanked. And here's the piece most programs skipped. Begin cultivation for the next gift within 18 months. So here's how you know when to start. At month 11, ask your donor, what aspect of our work has meant the most to you this year? Their answer tells you what happens next and what the next ask is. Now, another important response is not yet. Respect the timeline. Don't rush. Send follow-up materials that address the concern they raised, not a generic update. And continue non-ask touches and set a re-engagement date. I think it's so important and critical for people to not let that opportunity slip through. It just means a not now. It's not a no. And then third, what to do when you get a no. It might be a no for now. In order to transition this, you have to thank them sincerely. So remove from the solicitation track temporarily and move them back to the cultivation track because a no today often becomes a yes in 18 to 24 months with consistent stewardship. And there's research from Penelope Burke and Donor Search that shows that donors who receive consistent non-ask stewardship after declining give at higher levels on their eventual first gift than they do who were immediately resolicited. Ugh. Patience is the strategy here. The biggest gifts are often closed on the second ask. So normalize all 3 outcomes. You will hear all 3. So have a plan for each one. We're going to skip the drop in the chat today because, again, we're running a little bit close on time. But that list you created is your stewardship standard. We actually have a stewardship planning tool in the library that gives you a 12-month touchpoint calendar for every outcome. Yes, not yet, and no. But it's very important that you have a plan for every single one. And that's part of that pre-planning that happens as you're building out your donor templates and your portfolios. Now, you don't have to create everything from scratch. Every framework, every script, every tracker from today is ready to use. And here's how the toolkit breaks down. So today you get 4 resources for free, and those are be able to use right now. There's no membership required. Make sure you check your email within 24 hours. The remaining tools live in the resource library. The prospect research template, the cultivation activity tracker, the gift agreement template, the stewardship planning tool, all of those tools live there. So if you're thinking about investing in some support around resource development, please do check out our library, and don't forget the founders discount, which is 20% off all founding member prices forever until the end of April. Don't forget about that. So what's the plan? How are we closing? 4 weeks, not 4 months. Let's look at the next month. Here is your implementation plan. Week 1, starting on Monday, identify your top 20 prospects using the pipeline framework we talked about. Run the database sort. So pull your CRM first. Look at your event attendees and check your lapsed major donors. Commit to 20 names. Week 2, complete a philanthropy brief for your top 5 donors in your portfolio. Use the AI prompt. This is your homework, and you've got free templates in today's email that you'll get. Week 3, schedule cultivation meetings with 3 of those 5 individuals. Pull out the ask frameworks that you're going to get and actually write your ask for each one before you walk in the door. And then week 4, have one solicitation ready conversation. Whether or not the formal ask happens at that meeting, readiness is the goal. So the ask follows naturally when the relationship is ready. So schedule and be prepared. Your one thing, if you only do one thing from today, run the circle of influence exercise with your board. Ask each board member who in your network has the capacity and the care to give it a significant level, and write down every single name. You know it worked when you leave with at least 3 names you didn't have before. And at 3 names per board member across a 10-person board, you just built a 30 prospect pipeline in an hour. So I'd love to know, as we move into the Q&A, what was your number 1 takeaway from today? Just drop it in the chat. What was your number 1 takeaway from today? We're going to go right into the chat. Oh, thank you, Paula. And apologies again, my Slido for some reason is not working. But any questions that you have in the chat, please drop in the chat. And I'm going to leave up my contact information while we're going through this Q&A. I'm going back, Jose, to your question. So Jose asked, how does one determine a major gift threshold when you're at an org that has revenue generating departments, but your development department is housed within a cost center? Let's say the revenue generating areas that are intended to fund the cost mission focused areas are in a deficit. Okay, Jose, so that's a really interesting question. Couple of things you need to look at. I would go back to the basics. I absolutely would identify the threshold that works best for the size of organization you are. And I'm going to send you, actually, I can flip back hopefully quickly to that slide for you while we answer some of our other questions. But identify the threshold that makes the most sense for you. If you're still not sure based on that budget size, again, these are just general rules of thumb. So under $1 million budget, typically it's 1,000 to 2,500, 5,000 to 10,000 for a $1 to $5 million budget, etc. A couple of things you also need to think about is, what does your current job description look like? So do you have the time to manage outside of the 20 to 25 pipeline portfolio? That's typically what I call a starting point. So take a look at your donor pipeline, take a look at your donor threshold, and determine how many donors you can carry in pipeline portfolio, and call that your threshold. So a great example of this, let's say you pull your pipeline and it is Maybe you've got 100 donors over $1,000, but you have 50 donors over 5,000. 5,000 is a really strong starting point for a major gift pipeline. Focus on those 50. Once you allow yourself a little bit more time and flexibility to focus on major gift work, you can expand the pipeline from there. You can always shift your pipeline threshold as well. You just need to ensure it's an organizational shift. That's the most focused conversation you need to have. And Jose, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to pipe them in the chat here. I can answer more. Awesome. Susie, the prospecting grid was the most helpful. No problem, Jacqueline. Thank you for joining. The matrix of capacity and inclination was helpful. Excellent. Well, great. I'm so glad you all could join. If there are any other questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. Really, really excited to be with you all today. My contact information is here. And as I said, that $27 million gift, it did not start with a solicitation strategy. It started with a conversation in a parking lot where I listened for 40 minutes to a donor. And that's the whole system. So everything we covered today, the research, the qualification, the cultivation, the ask, the stewardship, it's all in service of that moment. And that moment is where a donor trusts you enough to make one of the most significant financial decisions of their entire year. So you have 4 tools in your hand right now, and you have 4 tools coming in your way via email later on today. You have your 30-day plan, and you've got some tools also on our website. Go out there, raise more, and stress less. That's the goal. And today was a big step forward. So I'll be sending a follow-up email within 24 hours with your tools, as well as a CFRE credit certificate for all those that are getting ready to test. If you have any questions after today, my email is right here, info@therdprocoach.com. And if you're ready for the library, check out our website, and don't forget the founders discount. Saves you 20% for life. Thank you all for being here, and have an amazing week.